Hello and welcome back to the podcast. So, we're back in Mako Trading today, and I interviewed Dave Segel, the founder, and Trystan Morgan Schauer, the CEO. This is a really interesting podcast because if you want to understand how a CEO and a founder work together, the dynamic that they have together, and how their example can and should infiltrate through the business, then I highly recommend listening to this. Enjoy. Hi guys, welcome back, Dave. Trystan, you're the CEO. Dave, you're the founder. I'm going to start with you, Trystan. How long have you worked at Mako?
It's my 18th anniversary in July of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, a long time.
At what level did you join the company?
So I joined in as a junior risk manager. I came in. I remember the story because it was a family member's birthday 2 weeks afterwards, and so I came and I joined for 2 weeks, and then I had a week off. And so I went to this wedding, and I remember everyone saying, "Oh, you've got a job in the city. Like, how is it?" And I was like, "Guys, A, I don't understand anything that's going on, and B, if I'm still commuting in 2 years' time, like, feel free to give me a slap and tell me to stop." And so here I am in the same place 17 years later, catching that train every single day. Yeah, that's, yeah.
What made you stay for the first year?
It was the community. The guy who hired me, a friend of mine, colleague named Jonny de, we're still friends. And there was a feeling, there was a real feeling of support and challenge and relationship and connection. And truthfully, in the first probably 3 or 4 years I was in Mako, I really thought that was our team. It didn't even really strike me that was a Mako thing. I thought that Jonny, as an excellent mentor and manager, was creating that environment. And then Jonny left, and I realized actually it was a broader thing. And it's been so challenging at points. But the thing that's kept me through it, kept me going through it, has always been the people. For the first period of that time, it was Jonny and my colleagues in risk. Then it was Chris Welsh and Lorraine and the other leaders. And then, as I stepped up to the next level, building a relationship with Dave, it struck me that the way he likes to work is the way that Mako has, it seems to me, has always worked, which is in this very collaborative, very connected way, but with huge kind of challenge and excitement and and curiosity as well.
Do you often think about the 25-year-old Trystan, or however old you were, walking into the business for the first time?
I suppose yes and no. I feel a great sense of responsibility that people get the same experience out of Mako that I did. I never want someone to leave and say, or even join and be around for a while and say, I don't feel that connection, because I feel like I've been here for so long. Mako has made me. It's helped me in the tough times. It's challenged me in the good times. It's rewarded me, and so I feel a great sense of responsibility to kind of pay that forward, and a great, honestly, a great loyalty to the company and to Dave for creating an environment that that made it feel that way. So I mean, my memory's not great. So it's hard to imagine myself coming in, but I do feel that sense of responsibility.
How important is it to you to create environments where people can excel, when you are bogged down in an HR issue or a tax issue, as we were saying before?
I think we have a great responsibility as leaders to not make it about us. And I think one of the most challenging elements to being a leader and to trying and pay forward that atmosphere of collaboration, connection, encouragement, growth, and curiosity is that you're constantly having to say, this isn't about me. Whatever room I've just walked in from, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to be present, and I'm going to be thinking about what your experience and what you need at any point in time. And that's something that I've both learned from being well managed in the past and working with Dave much more closely over the last 5 or 6 years. And I mean, Dave will remember these moments very acutely as well. But, when we walk in, I remember, a couple of years ago, you just arrived and you walked in and we saw one of the most significant challenges that certainly in my time Mako has ever faced. And at that time, I'm going to Dave in the way that people are coming to me all the time. I'm going to him saying, I'm overwhelmed, I'm under pressure, don't really know what to do next, I'm a bit scared, and what happens now, Dave? And whatever he was feeling at the time, which I'm sure he could share, maybe he doesn't want to, whatever he was feeling at the time, what he gave to me was a sense of confidence, a sense of backing, a sense of structure, and a sense of optimism that we could solve the problem and, survive and thrive. And so every time I interact with Dave or Chris or the board or any of the leaders that their job is to both be a support to me, but also hold me to account. Every time I do that, I get that same sense of challenge and optimism and structure, and I do think what we experience, again, we have to provide for others. So that's what I do when I'm sat there. Somebody comes in, I've got all of these pressures, whatever they are. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of that moment when Dave got off the plane. I'm sure what he wanted to do was scream and shout and throw something. And instead what I got was, let's fix this together.
How easy, Dave, do you find it? You created Mako, you founded Mako, you have a deep passion for servant leadership. To disassociate or not get triggered by a certain crisis and want to emotionally react to something and instead give service.
Well, I don't actually remember that conversation. Not because my memory is bad, which it is, but because that's just what we have to do. I do remember several such situations that looked intimidating, but what I remember is that we solved the problem and that we are a stronger partnership in business together for it, and we're a stronger business for what we learned in it. And in every one of those situations, we've looked at the puzzles in front of us, which are puzzles is a euphemism for crisis. And we have figured out a path through it with resilience. And then we've decompressed and we've done a postmortem and we've made changes. And through that journey, we've really learned, not just the two of us, but the whole team has learned to trust each other. Or they've left because some people couldn't take it, and that's fine. Or we couldn't take them, and that's fine. But that's one of the nice things about being in business together for a long time, is you develop this maturity as a community. We have the privilege of getting to pick who we want to be spending our life in business with after this much time. And we've chosen people that, we think are talented and we enjoy being with them, are filled with integrity. Those are deliberate choices. So it's not that easy when you're first starting a business, or even when you're first starting in a job, because you don't really know what you're walking into. But your question was, what was your question again?
Do you find it easy to lean into servant leadership?
Yeah, well, look, first of all, I'm an adrenaline junkie still,
exactly.
even if I don't have any more adrenaline in the system because I used it all. I love the challenge of having a big problem to fix. Some of them are emotional. It's a great opportunity to learn to behave like a grown-up and suppress that for the purpose. So we can always come back to the emotions later, and you have to. So I don't really hold on to those super tightly. Those aren't the memories I have of those experiences. And we've had, I think you're thinking of one in particular. We've had them in the past many times, and we will have more of them. And we've learned that we can surprise ourselves with resilience and success, and usually really good things come.
Yeah, I'm always interested whether there's an element in your psyche when you walk into one of those situations with me. I'm always interested if you're like, is there any element of you where you're like, this is the business that I started and built. How could you possibly mess it up this badly?
No, I've actually never thought that.
Is that right?
Well, first of all, I don't look at it like the business that I've started and built. I look at it like the business that we've collectively built. Not just from a value creation perspective, but from a cultural perspective. One of the beliefs that I have about markets, which I try to explain to other people, I think maybe it's changed a little bit in the last 30 years that I've been doing this, but is that markets are just collectives of people with emotions, and they respond to things. That's why markets go down faster than they go up. There's a greed element and there's a fear element. And every market as a collective is a collective of people participating, has a personality. So our top performing traders understand the personality of the market that they're involved with, and they can read it, respond to it, they're engaged with it. And honestly, Mako is the same thing. Mako is this collective of people, and it has developed a personality, not just because of my personality. Yeah, I was the first one here, so I've had a lot of influence on it. But we have a collective culture or ethos or set of values, which is really our building a personality together. So no, I don't even look at it like it's my business, and I look at it like, wow, how could we have screwed up, put at risk what we've worked so hard to develop, and let's make sure we don't do that again.
And I think I completely agree and understand, and I think that's the thing, especially when things are tough. That's the thing that brings us all together. It is a common value system and a common purpose. And the common purpose is we've all collectively built this organization over many, many years, some longer than others. We all want it to be successful, and we all know what our mountaintop is. So, okay, now we've just found another problem. But we've got that shared purpose to fall back on, and then we have that shared values. If you come into our team and you don't believe in servant leadership, and you don't believe in that making mistakes are a positive step for learning and understanding, and that the only really important thing after you've made a mistake is to make the changes necessary, then you don't really fit into the group, and that's found out pretty quickly on the whole. So yeah, I think it makes sense.
And those are not wrong assumptions; they're just different approaches.
Different approaches, yeah.
That's really interesting and wonderful that there is this sense of ownership, empowerment, and togetherness for people. But how do you inspire people to connect to that when they've been here 6 months, 6 years, when they walk through the door?
I think there are things that you can do. You can try and be transparent around communications. I think leaders using words like "I made a mistake and now I'm going to fix it," or "now we're going to fix it." I think all of those are really positive things that you can do, but they are just advertisements for what you believe, right? They're just ways of demonstrating the way that you make decisions ultimately. And so the best way to demonstrate to people who you are is in everything you do, in all the decisions that you make surrounding, that affect them. I'll give you some examples. So, sometimes somebody joins and there's been a miscommunication. They walk in, they're like, I did not expect this to be this for some reason. And maybe it's our fault, maybe it's our mistake, maybe it's their mistake. But ultimately, it's at that point in time when you decide whether your value system includes integrity and servant leadership and collaboration and problem solving and curiosity. And I've heard Dave, say this hundreds of times. It's like, let's solve this problem together. Not, I'm the CEO of Mako and what I say goes, and now I'm going to tell you exactly how it's going to work. But let's try and solve this problem together. And you come to that point with everybody. Like, it doesn't matter if it happens on the first day, before they join, 6 months later. That's when you advertise to them, this is who we are, this is how we make decisions. That's when they advertise to us as well, because many people say, you made a mistake, that's it, I'm out. Okay, like that may be totally justified, and certainly may be justified, it's guaranteed to be justified from your perspective. But that's not how we operate. The way we operate is we make mistakes, we learn things, we solve problems together, curious, we collaborate, we're connected. And so, there may be a cost to the relationship, but that relationship is strong. And so by going through this process, we create an even stronger relationship at the end of it. So that's what I think. I think too many people, and this is not an original thought. If you go around in an organization, like, we're going to redo the values, you come up with 5 words, you go out, put them on the wall, and everyone's like, yeah, but those are just words on the wall. Whereas I think more importantly for us is I want people coming out of that conversation going, wow, it's a really curious and collaborative way to solve that problem. I wasn't expecting that. It doesn't matter where the words are on the wall. I now understand what those words should be.
What are your values?
Oh, don't do that to me, Jonny. Integrity, collaboration, connection, ambition, and innovation.
And what would you say, is the common misconception about those values?
Ooh. Well, I think one of my fears is that people use words like collaboration and connection and they think, oh, well, this is a nice, friendly place to work. I love to come into work every day and enjoy myself and enjoy the people around me. But I think that integrity and collaboration mean having difficult conversations because we're constantly doing things all the time. We need accountability and we need somebody. I said Dave and I interact and had these big issues, and I've gone to Dave and he said, no, let's solve the problems together. But also Dave has come into a meeting and just landed and walked off the plane, and he said to me, this figure is a problem. What are you doing about it? Significant challenge and discussion around making sure that we're being innovative and ambitious and that we're paying attention to the right things. So yeah, I think culturally some words have maybe slightly passive connotations, and I think culture is never passive. Culture is always proactive, where you're constantly saying, yeah, but what about this? Why did you say that? I don't agree with you. We need to collaborate in our disagreement to understand how to get to an outcome. And I think I literally, we were having this conversation yesterday. Somebody said, oh, who's on the board and like what happens on the board? Oh, there's 4 of you on the board. Surely you want an odd number so that the vote is never tied. And I said, that's not how we think about the board. Our board, we want to discuss robustly and vigorously. And then we want to build a consensus approach to solving most problems. It's not always possible. Certainly, theoretically, it's not possible. But our goal is to listen and understand and evolve and change our mindsets and give people proper data-driven arguments that allow them to change ours and therefore make the best decision for the business. And so that is collaboration. It's not nice. Sometimes it's difficult, challenging, but it is very collaborative.
I often think that true values reveal themselves when you're in a point of crisis, not when everything's fine. It's quite interesting what those behaviours, that collaboration which you foster between you both, reveals itself not when you're deciding what restaurant to go to or what pub to go to. Reveals itself when you're having the crunchy conversations.
I think we also, a business like ours is always going to deal with some challenges. There's always something that's a challenge for the status quo. But we're not a business that really has a status quo. You know, Trystan and his team do a great job running the day-to-day operations of this business. I never think about day-to-day operations. But our biggest focal point isn't the challenges that the problems we have to solve. It's the future that we want to build to. And so really a lot of the work certainly the work that I get to engage with Trystan on is long-term planning, the creative process in that, how are we going to solve, using those same tools that we fixed the crisis issue, how are we going to apply those tools to making something happen that's totally unknown right now, whether it's, you know, a financial model that hasn't been built, or a market that we don't have access to, or something, you know, larger in scope. And we've got some pretty large projects defined in scope that we're building to. So you still need, there is no status quo, is my point. So there really is never a sit around and say, what restaurant are we going to go to? But most of our energy is spent using that collaboration and that teamwork and those disciplines to be building.
It's interesting to think about values as disciplines as opposed to these sort of ethereal, almost words on walls, you know.
I think Dave always asks the question, what do you value? You know, that is an appropriate question in almost any decision you make. That, like, ultimately, every decision is, what do you value? Do you value doing new things? Do you value saving money on costs? In this situation, in this context, you know, this is how we make the decision. At this point, we decide we're going to do a new thing, but it's going to cost more. So in this situation, we value innovation above the status quo. So yeah, I think it's a real, it really anchors what a value is if in a situation you say, what do we value here? Yeah, I think it's powerful.
It helps us prioritize, for sure. Does that question that we're asking, where does that fit in the context of our mountaintop, or North Star objectives? And the difference between what do we value and what are our values makes it's much more personal. You don't have to refer to the wall or the website or watch Ted Lasso to figure it out. You can pretty intuitively know, do I value in this discussion being right? Do I value being respectful? Do I value getting the right outcome? And you can value one, but that's very different from, well, let's check and reference what we said earlier. And so they are kind of disciplines because you get a choice. You can choose to be curious, or you can choose to be innovative, or you can choose to do things the way you are.
I had, as part of my journey, you know, I can be quite emotional, as in I have that part of me, and that was a real question it was a real question for me, like almost a really explicit question, was, do I value needing to be the person who is right in a room at any point? Or do I value actually what is correct? And the way I really learned that lesson is by making bad decisions on my own. Be like, oh, okay, that was my decision. And, you know, the sort of the great thing about being in the role that I am is, I suppose, you get to be the person who makes decisions. And the worst thing is you have literally no one to hide behind. And then I guess the third dimension of that is, it's a bit like being a football manager. I'm pretty confident everyone in Mako is saying, oh, I wouldn't have made that decision. So there's a lot of ego in there. Like, people are talking about me and I need to be right because I'm the decision maker, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to this place where you're like, I just don't want to be, I don't need to be right anymore. Like, I don't need to feel right anymore. I just want to be right. That's way more important to me, that we make the right decisions, not that, like, in the room, I was the guy who had the answer and the power. So that was something that was something so interesting to me. Like, getting to CEO, you're like, oh, you're the CEO now. You get to make all the decisions, or you have all the this and that. And very quickly, I was like, whoa, there. You do get to make a lot of decisions, and you know, I am highly incentivized to make sure that all the information is heard, that all the right people get to sound about it. The people that I disagree with, I'm going to spend the most time talking to, because, like, what if they're right? And that was great. Well, no, it was not a great experience, but I feel in much better position now, having gone through it, I suppose, and hopefully it makes me better at the job as well.
No doubt. And also, because you're not saying I won't make the call, you still make the call, but it's much more exciting as an individual to be so much more inclusive. It's like more informed, and you look at problems I find it a much more exciting point of view attitude. Dave, were you, when you were, as we were discussing in the previous podcast, in the 80s, late 80s, you're on the floor wearing jackets, the adrenaline, and the cliche of the sort of Wolf of Wall Street-esque behaviors. Did you always have this point of view on values, or is it part of your personal evolution?
It was I don't think I was thinking about what values I would put on my website, because there were no websites. This is, I was young and excitable and ambitious and loving trading, loving the competition. You know, just walked into the dream career, and wasn't thinking about any of that. It's a journey that we've developed as we've tried to figure out what our place is in life and what our definition of success is and what our capabilities are and what our relationships look like and how to do business well. I think I didn't know then, but I can see now a very clear definition of success. We were talking about success earlier, and we use that here all the time. A definition for Mako to succeed is an often debated thing. Do we want to set a annual revenue target? Do we want to set a global ambition? Do we want to set a comparison to our competitors? And in the end, we've settled on success as a group and success as individuals contributing to that comes down to being the best that we can be, doing the best that we can do with the opportunity that's in front of us. And that's our obligation to each other. How can I help you make the most of your career? How can I challenge you if you're falling short of that? And I think we're using that as a metric. Right now, we're going through some very systematic analysis of desk by desk or product by product or group by group trading performance. And sure, we're looking at our position relative to our competitors and our revenues against budgets. But really, the key criteria is, are you making the most of your opportunity? Because if your numbers are great, but you're missing half the opportunity, you're not being the best you can be. And that applies to software developer. It applies to me in my sort of founder role. Am I contributing the most that I can? So I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was thinking about, I was, 25. And if you get a chance, you should watch Don Cheadle's new show called Black Monday, which is set 1986 Wall Street, which is a spoof, maybe a little bit irreverent look at that world. And if you watch that, you'll say nobody was thinking about values in 1986 on Wall Street.
Here's a question. We've spoken a lot today about trading performance, company performance. The traders are obviously like the arteries into the business. But you have a huge development team, accounts team, compliance, everything which goes into running an organization. How do you not make the traders simply the rock stars? And how do you have that inclusive ownership piece that you were discussing and empowerment piece that you were discussing? Or is it something that you just have to support the traders because of what they do?
The way I see it is that the organization is an arrowhead. And at the very pointy end of that arrowhead is an interaction with a market. And that interaction with the market can be controlled either by software. Well, it's always controlled by software, to be honest, but can be controlled in sort of the second stage is controlled by a trader or arguably a developer. But the arrow won't fly. You've got your arrow and you've got your arrowhead. The arrow is not of any value to you unless it is flying through the air at its target. And so whilst our interaction with the market is the point of the arrow, and we should all think that way, we're all here to make sure that point is as sharp and flying as fast and effectively as possible. But the arrow wouldn't fly with anything else. Have we always got that right in Mako and other training firms? I don't know, probably not. But if your values are centered around collaboration and connection, and a common purpose and a common mountaintop, then we're all very supportive of making sure that arrow is as fast and sharp as possible. So yeah, it is a tricky one. It can lead to kind of a an upstairs downstairs sort of feel to it. But I think we've stepped away from that, and I think that in the new world, we're all just doing our part to make this arrow hit the target, fly as fast as possible. So I think that's my mindset.
I would go back to the creativity topic, because all of those contributors, particularly the software developers and hardware and the traders, are going to help us excel as a unit if they're using their creativity. And so there is a very personal contribution that's beyond our push to be very data-driven. We've really shifted our approach from intuitive or, sort of whatever will be, to a highly process-driven, highly data-driven, highly algorithmic way of looking at price making and trading. But no doubt, in the example of traders, and I think because of this, traders need to be celebrated as rock stars. That personality, that relationship with the market that we talked about earlier, is an intuitive and relational talent that's developed over many, many years. And we have looked at data that show performance differences between the proficient trader in a market and the expert intuitive trader in that market. and they're substantial. In the same way that when I took piano lessons as a kid, I learned to read the music, and I could play a song proficiently that was reflecting the notes that were on here. But I never developed music. I never played music. So it's a funny one because we want to take away all the hard parts for the trader, or I should say all the easy parts, all the parts that are easy for a computer to do, so that they can apply that. It's the same thing for software engineering. It's the same thing for us in our long-term strategic planning. How do we still bring all that creativity to the process? And as much as we try to objectify everything and quantify everything and make everything a data-driven and analytic process, business is a creative exercise, and that's how we're going to do the best with our opportunity.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonny.
If you believe what we believe, please help us grow this podcast by liking, subscribing, and sharing. Thanks.